Let me say you this. One of the greatest secrets of success, hidden in plain sight and overlooked by millions, is this. Act as if you are already blessed. Most people live their lives reacting to what they see. They respond to their bank balance. They respond to other people's approval. They respond to temporary emotions, setbacks, and external circumstances. But the man who rises above the crowd, who commands results, who attracts wealth, health, influence, and peace, is the man who does not wait for blessing to act like he is blessed. He decides. He assumes. He declares his favor before he sees it, and because he does, he lives in the vibration that makes it so. You must understand that your outer world is always an echo of your inner state. The universe is not moved by begging, it is moved by belief. And belief must be demonstrated not with empty words, but with consistent action. If you believe you are already favored, already empowered, already connected to every resource you need, your posture changes, your habits change, your tone changes. You do not walk like a beggar. You walk like a king, not arrogant, aligned, not boastful, anchored. There is no man more dangerous to the status quo than the one who has made up his mind that he is already blessed and therefore obligated to live like it. He wakes up with intention, he speaks with clarity, he carries himself with a sense of calm and conviction. He does not wait to feel ready. He does not wait for applause. He does not wait for every light to turn green before he begins to move. He knows that he is blessed, and he acts like it. And because he does, the world around him begins to bend in his favor. You must learn to live from the vision, not the visible. Most people look at what they have and say, this is who I am. But the winner looks at what he is becoming and says, that is who I am right now. He does not shrink because his circumstances are small. He does not settle because others say, wait. He does not delay bold action because his situation has not yet caught up with his imagination. He lives in alignment with the future he is building, and that alignment causes acceleration. Let me ask you a question. How would you behave if you knew without a shadow of doubt that everything you needed was already moving toward you? Would you still complain? Would you still hesitate? Would you still walk through life with your head low, questioning your value, doubting your timing, envying others who seem to be further along? No. You would move like a man on assignment. You would prepare the table before the harvest arrived. You would speak like a man carrying authority. You would choose your words, your friends, your time, your standards differently. Because when you know you're blessed, you stop entertaining anything beneath that blessing. Here is what I want you to grasp. Acting blessed is not about delusion. It is about dominion. It is about recognizing that everything begins with your mental environment. That your thoughts, your beliefs, your assumptions, they carry a vibrational frequency that sends instructions to your life. When you act as if you're broke, confused, inferior, undeserving, you attract more of the very conditions that validate those beliefs. But when you act as if you're powerful, supported, valuable, chosen, you shift into a new frequency. And your actions, repeated over time, create a gravitational pull around your life. Faith is not a theory. It is a force. And faith must be expressed through acts of alignment. A man says he has faith, but he never prepares. He never studies. He never sows into his vision. That is not faith, it is fantasy. Faith says, I will prepare because the opportunity is coming. I will clean the barn because the harvest is on its way. I will invest in my skills because doors are being opened for me. And because that man lives in readiness, he becomes trustworthy, not just in the eyes of others, but in the laws of the universe. Every time you act like you're already blessed, you give God and the universe a signal that you are available. And that signal matters more than your words. Many people say, I'm ready, but their habits say, I'm not. Their energy says, I'm afraid. Their preparation says, I don't really believe it's coming. And so it doesn't. Not because they weren't worthy, but because they weren't aligned. You must decide what level of life you believe you are called to, and then act like you already belong there. Don't wait for the world to validate your vision. Don't wait for applause to reinforce your calling. Start building, start walking, start investing, start training, start dressing like it, speaking like it, walking like it. When you act blessed, you prove that you can be trusted with the blessing, and the universe always rewards trust. I remember well what it feels like to start with nothing, to look around and see no evidence that your dream is possible, but I also remember what it felt like to ignore the lack and move anyway. I acted like I was destined for greatness before greatness ever called my name. I wrote like my books would shape nations long before a single soul read them. I studied like the stage was already mine. I built my character, my focus, my disciplines, not in response to success, but in anticipation of it. That anticipation became magnetism. That magnetism attracted people, opportunities, favor, and doors that remained invisible to the man I used to be. So I say this to you with urgency. You are not waiting on your blessing. Your blessing is waiting on you to rise, to shift, to clean your mind of fear, to organize your life like you expect success. Because until you do, the blessing cannot land. A plane does not land on a cluttered runway, and favor does not land in a life that is misaligned. You've been praying for next level results, but have you become a next level man? Have you ordered your habits? Have you elevated your environment? Have you disciplined your mouth? Have you surrounded yourself with vision, clarity, structure, and focus? Or are you still showing up like the version of you who was content with less? This is not about arrogance. It's about availability. It's about becoming the kind of man who can carry the weight of what he says he wants. And let me tell you something, the moment you start showing up like it's already yours, everything begins to change. You stop explaining yourself, you stop shrinking, you stop second-guessing, you stop tolerating low-level distractions. Because you understand that your time is valuable, your name is valuable, your presence is valuable, and that understanding shifts the entire atmosphere around you. Others may not see it yet. That's okay. You don't need them to. You are not acting for their applause. You are aligning with your assignment. And when you do that consistently, they will have no choice but to see. Because results cannot be ignored, and results follow those who act blessed before they feel it. You must hold the vibration of the outcome before it arrives. That's the secret. When others worry, you worship. When others panic, you plan. When others fear, you focus. Because you already know. You don't need proof. You have principle. You don't need confirmation. You have conviction. You don't need applause. You have alignment. This is the key that unlocks everything. Act as if you're already blessed, and watch how fast the world catches up. If you truly understood the power of acting as if you're already blessed, you would never again wait for validation from the world. You would realize that every external result is the echo of an internal decision. You would see that the results you're chasing are not found in effort alone, but in embodiment. Embodiment means you become it before you receive it. You carry the posture, the discipline, the energy, the frequency of the future you have decided belongs to you. That future is not a fantasy, it's a seed. And seeds do not grow because you stare at them. They grow because you act like they're already becoming trees. You cannot wait to feel like a winner to behave like one. You must behave like one to become one. The principle is simple. Act like the man who already has what you desire. How does he think? How does he walk? What does he allow into his mind? What does he tolerate? What does he eliminate? What does he protect? What does he invest in? When you begin to answer those questions with clarity, you stop acting from your history and you start acting from your destiny. The man who believes he's already blessed stops entertaining the energy of desperation. He's not chasing, he's not begging, he's not hustling from lack, he's building from abundance. And because of that, his actions carry power, his words carry weight, his boundaries become clear, his vision becomes magnetic. He doesn't just hope to be successful, he walks in the assumption of success. And that assumption changes everything. So many people are waiting for the blessing to behave differently. But that is backward. That is like saying, I'll lift my hands when I feel strong, not realizing that lifting is what builds the strength. You don't become elevated by waiting. You become elevated by walking in elevation, even when no one else sees it, even when your circumstances haven't shifted yet, even when the applause is absent and the road looks lonely. Because that is when your character is formed. And character is the foundation of every lasting reward. Ask any man who has built anything of value, and he will tell you, the belief came first. He saw it internally before it showed up externally. He adjusted his actions long before his audience grew. He showed up to the small rooms like they were arenas. He built with excellence when no one was watching. He made decisions from his future, not from his fear. That's the man who becomes a magnet for blessings. Not because he's chasing blessings, but because he's aligned with the vibration of them. You cannot hold what you are not prepared for. That's why so many people miss their moment. The door opens, but they haven't become the version of themselves that can walk through it with certainty. They prayed for the opportunity, but they never changed their posture. They dreamed of the platform, but they never prepared their mindset. And when the opportunity arrived, they looked like the same man who was still begging, not the man who had been building. This is why preparation must come from identity, not from evidence. You don't wait for the promotion to act like a leader. You lead now. You don't wait for the breakthrough to act like a man of peace. You anchor yourself now. You don't wait for the relationship to show up to act like a man who is healed and whole. You become that man now. Because everything you desire is attracted to who you are, not what you wish for. When you act as if you're already blessed, you no longer waste energy explaining yourself. You stop negotiating with doubt. You stop giving airtime to fear. You protect your vision with intensity. You guard your mind with precision. You elevate your conversations, your environment, your standard of behavior, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you've decided who you are. The moment you shift from hoping to embodying, you enter a new dimension of living. You stop chasing alignment and start creating it. You become a thermostat, not a thermometer. You set the tone, you shift the room. You carry an energy that others can feel, not because you're performing, but because you're positioned. Blessing is not something outside of you. It is something you activate from within. That activation happens the moment you choose to act as if you've already won, as if the contract is already signed, as if the room is already prepared for you, as if the blessing already belongs to you. And in that posture, you behave differently. You stop showing up timid. You stop shrinking to fit in. You stop letting other people's doubt infect your decision-making. The reason most people never see the fullness of their destiny is because they are still trying to qualify themselves for a table they've already been invited to. But I'm telling you, the moment you stop asking, do I belong here, and start becoming the man who owns the table, everything begins to change. The conversations change. The opportunities change. The energy you attract changes. Not because the world changed, because you did. You have to understand something about the laws of faith and success. They do not respond to need. They respond to alignment. The man who waits to be chosen never leads. The man who waits to be discovered never dominates. The man who waits to feel ready never moves. But the man who acts from the assumption of his blessing, he walks with clarity. He speaks with direction. He multiplies what he has, and because of that, more is given to him. I'm not talking about arrogance. I'm not talking about pretending. I'm talking about replacing performance with presence. The kind of presence that says, I don't need to strive. I've already received. That's the power of acting as if you're already blessed. You don't have to beg for what belongs to you. You simply prepare for its arrival. And that preparation becomes the evidence of your belief. Let me be very clear. If you believe your future is secure, you stop behaving like a man in survival mode. You stop reacting to every storm. You stop giving your time to petty battles. You stop panicking when things look uncertain, because your actions are rooted in an internal conviction that overrides external conditions. That's what acting blessed really means. It's not about what you feel, it's about what you decide. You decide to walk like the answer is already on the way. You decide to prepare like the invitation has already been sent. You decide to speak like the world is listening. You decide to build like the foundation is firm. And in doing so, you become the man who attracts more, not because he needs it, but because he's ready to multiply it. Stop waiting to be rescued. Stop waiting to be discovered. Stop waiting for permission to live like a man who is blessed. Permission has already been granted. You're not waiting on God. He's waiting on you to align, to move, to rise, to live like it's already done. When you act as if you're already blessed, you stop playing defense. You go on offense. You don't walk into a room looking to be chosen. You walk in choosing yourself. And that, my friend, is where all momentum begins. There is no force more powerful than a man who has decided to live as if his future has already arrived. Not a man who pretends, not a man who performs, but a man who has accepted his calling, embodied his purpose, and aligned his habits with a future version of himself that he is becoming. That man is no longer moved by emotion, no longer trapped in cycles of doubt, and no longer swayed by what others say. Why? Because he already knows who he is. He's not waiting to be crowned by applause. He's already wearing the crown of identity. When you begin to act as if you're already blessed, you exit the realm of reaction and enter the realm of creation. You are no longer a servant of circumstance. You become a master of command. You speak life and create momentum. You speak vision, and the atmosphere around you responds. The world is shaped not by those who wait for ideal conditions, but by those who carry ideal convictions. Every day you move in the energy of your answered prayer. You build infrastructure for it to manifest. You no longer hope, it's done. You no longer question, it's yours. And from that inner assurance, you build different. You don't build halfway. You don't delay excellence. You don't negotiate with distraction. You walk like the doors are already opening because you are too focused preparing for what is coming to notice who isn't clapping yet. This is how the most powerful men in history operated. They moved on belief long before belief became popular. They saw what others could not see, and they lived as if it was already true. They didn't need everyone to agree. They only needed alignment with their own mission. And because they embodied that belief, they attracted favor, influence, partnerships, opportunities that would never have shown up for the man who sat still, waiting for the outside to shift before he moved. Let me say it plainly. Your external environment will never shift if your internal posture remains low. You cannot keep speaking from defeat and expect victory. You cannot keep walking like a servant and expect to receive the inheritance of a king. You must carry the energy of completion, of wholeness, of strength, of gratitude now, not later. You don't wait to feel blessed to live blessed. You live blessed to feel blessed. If you've ever felt like you're stuck, like you're waiting, like you're just one breakthrough away from becoming who you were meant to be, let me ask you this. Have you become the kind of man who can handle what you're asking for? Have you stretched your mindset? Have you upgraded your environment? Have you forgiven your past? Have you let go of the victim story? Have you made space in your calendar, your emotions, your finances for the new version of you to arrive? You can't ask for the next level and still live like the last one. You can't pray for more while thinking and acting like less. You can't expect overflow while clinging to scarcity with your thoughts, your words, your self-image. Blessing is not random. It is received by those who prepare with precision. That's why the command is simple but profound. Act as if you're already blessed. Every day. Even on the days it feels like the blessing is far away. Even on the days when resistance is louder than reassurance. That's when your character is formed. That's when the testing happens. That's when the foundations are laid. The man who rises is not the man who avoids adversity. He is the man who meets adversity with the posture of someone who